This week in PlayStation, we're talking about a PlayStation 5 Pro, Naughty Dog's next game, and our reviews of WWE 2K23 and The Wreck. We'll have all this and more because this is PS I Love You XOXO. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Greg. That's Blessing. That's Janet. And you can get this show on patreon.com/KindaFunny. There you can watch us record it live, get it ad-free, and get dozens of monthly episodes of exclusive content. If you have no bucks to toss our way, no big deal. Support us on the Epic Game Store with the creator code KindaFunny. When you're playing Fortnite, Rocket League, Fall Guys, whatever on your PlayStation, you can pop it in there. You, of course, can get PS I Love You XOXO for free with ads and without any of the cool content on Patreon by going to youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames and podcast services around the globe. Thank you to our Patreon producers who don't have to listen to those ads. Tripod, Plus, and Delaney Twining. Today we're brought to you by Honey, but let's start with a PSN message from Yo! Blessing, Janet, how are you?
Good.
Professional podcasters. That's what I fucking get out of you.
Straight to the point.
You know what I mean? Come in here and you do. Bless. As we were getting ready to go live, you're like, if we don't have a PSN message. And I was like, well, we got one, but it's trash. Write and remember with your own PSN messages. Remember, KindaFunny.com/PSIL. It's not like I'm diming out the person who put in
How are
the
you
garbage.
going to do that to Golden Spider?
Put in the I wasn't going to say his name is how I was going to do it. I wasn't going to say Dan the Golden Spider B.
He put his heart and soul.
With utter dog shit to the podcast. I wasn't going to say if I was him, I'd break my keyboard and walk into the woods because I can't put a fucking thought onto the internet. KindaFunny.com/PSILY if you want to be part of the show.
Family,
you
probably.
Suggestions in there if you want your own suggestions. No, but Dan's question was fine. But you came up with something a little more pertinent for what's been going on.
Yeah.
A little bit more timely. What do you got for me?
I mean, I didn't come up with it. Twitter came up with it. This is one that's making the rounds currently on Twitter from Mr. PO1, who tweeted out, "Is The Last of Us HBO TV show the best video game adaptation ever made?" And I thought that was a very interesting question, especially for this show.
I agree. They put up here in the tweet has 4 images. Last of Us on HBO, of course. Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Arcane. And then Castlevania. We're not going to spoil Last of Us HBO, correct?
Correct.
Even though, come on, it's Last of Us. You should have played by this point. I mean, you know what I mean? There was when I was up in Canada, I was making conversation with this kid who plays video games. Like, oh, great. And I'm like, what do you think of Last of Us show? And I'm actually waiting because I haven't played it yet. I want to play the game first. I'm like, the game came out in 2013.
10 years.
What are you fucking talking about? Janet, let's begin with you. I assume you finished The Last of Us. Is it the best video game adaptation of all time?
I feel kind of bad to the other adaptations because I haven't really watched much of them is the thing. So I feel like a little bit incapable to give really a full answer in terms of just show to show which show is better. Because I will say Last of Us, I was super hot on at the jump. I'm like, oh yeah, they're like nailing this. What a great show. Even if you didn't play the game, it's great. And that was true to a point. And then after a certain point, as someone that played the game and loved the games, I still really enjoyed it. But like watching alongside my family who hadn't played the games, I'm like, yeah, I guess I could see how you feel that way, but I can't see that because I am, flooded with the memories of the game. So I do think it petered towards the end, just in terms of like the quality. But I think off like, what was it, episode 3, like the Bill's Town episode, off that alone, like I'd be hard pressed to find much TV that even is on par with that. I think also too, this begs the question of what really makes a good adaptation. Is it just a matter of the piece that you then created is of quality? Are we just doing piece to piece? Or do we also, is there that aspect of wanting to capture the essence of what it is? I do think Last of Us is probably the most, in terms of being both true to the experience of the game, but also expanding on certain parts and pushing it forward as like a standalone, medium. But what about y'all?
I'm similar to you in the way that I've watched some of Arcane, I've watched some of Cyberpunk. I didn't touch Castlevania. They just weren't my jams or whatever from this image, right? But I think you bring up a good point, Janet, of like The Last of Us compared to these and then compared to its source. Whereas even if I was to bring in Sonic the Hedgehog, right, or Detective Pikachu, 2 things that I do think are awesome video game adaptations, right? They're not so much adapting the game as much as playing in that world and feeling authentic to that world and that character, that IP. Whereas I think The Last of Us, literally, it's like not in many instances, line for line, set piece for set piece, moment for moment. They do deviate and change and do things, but it is very much taking the game and the narrative of The Last of Us and making that into, hey, here's a show. Whereas even for me not being a League player, Arcane really isn't that. Arcane's in the League world, obviously, but it's not like now you're gonna go mid and I'm gonna take the high lane and yada yada yada. And Cyberpunk is like such a blank slate of like, yeah, it's a cyberpunk thing and it's awesome, don't get me wrong, but it's not like the story of cyber. I don't have fucking Keanu Reeves running around in my head doing this thing. Like, that's a different thing, right? This is like a straight up adaptation. That was cool in Cyberpunk.
I will say Detective Pikachu is based on the Detective Pikachu game, but I didn't play that game.
But it's not. I mean, it is. That is correct. But it's not like.
It's more based off the character than any of the story in that.
Yeah,
right. Because I imagine the story isn't like quite. But I didn't play it, so I'm like, I don't know. Like, it could be 1 for 1, and I wouldn't know.
See, I think for me, there's a clear answer of what is the best video game adaptation, and that's the Pokemon anime. Like, that is 1 for 1 in adaptation, right? When you talk about all the Pokemon being included, and then also the gym leaders and the journey that Ash goes through, but then also just the pure impact of what Pokemon is and the Pokemon anime plus the video game had. It almost feels like cheating. Like, and I think technically it fits into this conversation, and technically I would say that is the best video game adaptation of all time. That said, I think The Last of Us might be top 3 for me. You know, I look through this list in the tweet, and Castlevania, I never got around to. Arcane, I watched part of Arcane, and like I had such a respect for it and appreciation for it, but it's that weird thing of like, it's not my kind of animation. Like once I got into it, I was like, this isn't speaking to me in the way that speaking to like Andy Cortez and other people that I know either appreciate the world or just appreciate the the animation. Cyberpunk, I did watch all the way through, and I would honestly maybe compare the two between Last of Us and Cyberpunk just in terms of quality. Because I mean, I like anime. I think the Cyberpunk anime is dope as hell. I know it's not 1 for 1 with what goes on in the game, but I think adapting that world, especially when you can see the 1-to-1 comparisons as far as like art style, and like when you get the calls in the game, like the way they take that UI and express it directly in the anime, a lot of the lore bits that you take from the game. I think Cyberpunk Edgerunners is up there. Last of Us is also up there. It's that thing where Last of Us, I don't know if I would say Last of Us as a season is 10 out of 10, but it's at least like a 9 out of 10 for me, right? And you don't get many of those when it comes to video game adaptations, which automatically kind of puts that in the conversation.
Sure.
And even when I see, like, when I think of video game adaptations, what comes to mind directly when I think of what the iconic ones throughout time have been, I think of like Mortal Kombat, I think of the Tomb Raider stuff, I think of Resident Evil stuff. None of that stuff is fantastic in terms of quality.
It was just cool to see.
It was cool and
brought
different
to a movie screen, even though it wasn't the best.
Yeah. And so I would say right now on first blush, if I had to say, Last was top 3, but I can't put it above Pokemon, the anime.
Fair enough.
How scared are you guys for this Horizon God of War TV show? Because I was watching that Last of Us show, and I'm like, I can't cancel the Horizon show. I don't want to see it. I can't go through this again. I can't keep going through this.
What about Gran
with this
Turismo?
IP. It's tiring.
None of us are saying the true words, which are twisted metal. Yeah,
Anthony Mackie.
That's gonna throw this whole conversation out the water.
It's a weird time to be alive. All these IPs being turned into shows.
Here's the follow-up question. I know it's a PlayStation podcast, but let's get spicy. Toward the end of the year, when we get to the Game Awards and they do the best adaptation category, who do you think takes it between this, Last of Us, and Super Mario the movie?
Great question. You say Last of Us? No hesitation, Janet. No hesitation.
No, I mean, I have to watch the Super Mario movie still because, you know, maybe they really are somehow like really in their bag there. But I think Mario at best will probably be like a fun time, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be a better standalone work. Again, trying to remove the nostalgia aspect. Like Last of Us show, like it has parts of that show that I'm like, wow, this is just really moving TV. And then there's parts that I think don't translate quite as well. Again, the highs of that. Once they had that Bill's Town, I'm like, it's done. It's a wrap. Like once
I think Bill's Town might seal the deal for Last of Us, honestly. Like, I think when we get there, maybe you'll have some people that'll pick Mario because a lot of people kind of hate The Last of Us, but not enough people hate The Last of Us to pick Mario. I don't think.
I think I like this question specifically Game Awards, specifically Healy's Game Awards. I think it'll be Last of Us as well. I think it'll be a close race. I think Super Mario, the Super Mario movie is gonna be fantastic. Like it looks really funny, it looks really great. But I think it'll be the idea that like, oh, they adapted and interpreted the Mario world. Again, they put all these jokes and references and all these things in honoring the video game, but it is its own original story, yada, 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 where this is the game come to life. And so I think that'll get there. And it is the fact that it has, I guess, more poignant highs than I think Mario will. I think Mario is going to be this like really great time across the board and really fun and really interesting and what all the references they throw in there. Where I think when you talk about something like Billstown, or you talk about the David stuff, or you talk about, you know, that final section with Pedro, you know, in the finale, like I think there's going to be so many things like, damn, that was fucking outrageous. Also, I want to give a shout out to Margaret Peterson before it goes away. I had a big yawn there, and I did think about slacking. Hey, somebody please go get me a coffee. I'm dying. It's been a long day. But Margaret Peterson in the live chat on patreon.com on KindaFunny says, get that man a Coke. And I was going to go get one right there from the Coke fridge, but I see Barrett Courtney.
Hey.
Look, he knows what I need over there. He wants a ride home.
Oh yeah, let's go. He wants a ride home.
He knows how to get in that passenger seat.
Every day he fights for his ride home.
Thank you. I didn't turn
Sometimes
him
he just
down
sleeps
yesterday.
here
I felt so bad.
overnight.
Do you want to sniff it or
No.
like
Is it a good year? What year is it? What year is this Coke? Oh, a good year. Oh,
Let's
yeah,
go,
there we
let's
go.
go.
Now we're
That
talking.
crap.
Now we're talking.
It's tough. This is a tough question, obviously, to try and answer before we even get the Mario movie. But just watching from just watching trailers, that hit, it looked like something hit the spot. I can see the
love
gears
Coke.
turning.
It's spicy.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. You reintroducing Coke to my life has been a blessing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You know, it's what I do. But yeah, so Mario movie looks incredible to me. Like,
Yeah.
when in talking about adapting video games into TV or movie or whatever, right? And like truly adapting them in a one-for-one way, the Mario movie looks almost as close as you can adapt Super Mario the world as you can, right? Like the fact that, you know, they're Luigi's kidnapped in this almost Luigi's Mansion like situation. You got the Mario Kart shit going on. You got Donkey Kong, and like they're doing wild shit, like Donkey Kong's grabbing a fire flower and doing all this shit. Like it looks like it almost looks like the best Mario movie I could ask for from the trailers.
100%.
And I think what it might come down to towards the end of the year is just the fact that, one, the Billstown episode of Last of Us, I think it's just a 10 out of 10 episode of TV. And I think that's going to stick out to people as this had moments. Like, this had fucking incredible moments that are going to stick with us for a while. And then also just the fact that it's more of a serious HBO show versus like an animated movie, right? Like, and like, you know, maybe that's bias playing, taking a part in there. Maybe it's whatever, but I do think it's easier to look at Last of Us as we got to give it to this because look at like the gravity of the situation they're in and like the performances of Bella and Pedro and all this stuff versus the Mario movie being more lighthearted, being more of a, you know, a kiddie thing might bring it back when we get to the end of the year.
Discount Chris Pratt, man. Maybe his
I was
performance
just thinking
brings us all to tears.
If Chris Pratt brings me to tears, then I'll take all this back. Yeah,
We shall
we'll
see. We shall see. Let's move on from the PSN message to topic of the show. I want to take you all back. There was an awkward pause. I notice usually in the hosting sense, when I notice an awkward pause, it's like you don't even notice it, but I notice it because I feel like, I wasn't ready.
Usually I feel like they're on purpose.
Well, that's a pregnant pause. That's a different thing. A pregnant pause I like for a good reason. That is on purpose. But what I was doing is trying to pull up a message from Friday, March 10th. Friday, March 10th at 5:49 p.m. I got a Slack from the one, the only, Forbes 30 under 30, a.k.a. the future class of video games, a.k.a. the OK Beast, blessing Eddie Oye Jr., that said, I can't believe I'm this hype booting up WWE 2K23. And you want to talk about music to my fucking ears, blessing.
Oh, yeah.
You know how much I love wrestling. You know how much I love wrestling games. You know how much I was looking forward to 2K23. We got our codes on Friday. It is now, as we record this, Tuesday. Not a lot of time. I went back and listened to my Gamescast review of WWE 2K22, and it was the exact same situation.
Really?
Where I'm like, yo, barely scratched the surface on some modes, dialed into, dug down in other modes. So, like, this, I'm going to talk about this, I'm sure, for weeks on end, if not months on end of it. But, like, just start off this. Blessing, I want you to go first, because I talk about wrestling games all the time. What do you think so far of your time with WWE 2K23?
I am enjoying it a lot so far. It's been interesting playing this version because I've gone back and forth with you already on this a little bit of me saying, "Oh, dude, I'm kind of hyped to boot up WWE 2K23," and I think you might have been the one to mention that. Like, yeah, so far it feels like WWE 2K22 Deluxe, and this is like upon day one of getting the code, and started playing it, played quite a bit of it over the weekend. And that has been my takeaway so far. It's funny because I remember last year during your review, I remember I think you might have been the sole person to have the game, or maybe you played it. You played way more of it.
Yeah, I played
than
more.
had
Other people had played
at that point. Yeah, because you had dedicated yourself to reviewing the game, and I remember listening to you talk about it, and you were like, you gave it a high score. You were
4 out of 5.
Yeah, 4 out of 5.
Great on the KindaFunny scale.
You were very positive on it, and as you were speaking on it, in the back of my head, I was thinking like, man, I feel like the game, like in some parts, almost feels like it's held together by tape, and I don't know what exactly that is, but
Yeah.
I could feel like hitches and like in the creative character stuff, like the like loading in the assets and like weird things where I'm like, this game feels like it can break at any moment, and I don't know why, but I would play more of it and then be like, all right, no, I can kind of see where Greg's coming from here. Like, this is actually a really, really great wrestling game. And something about 2K23 feels a bit better held together. And once again, it's hard to put my finger on it. Maybe just the fact that it is way more iterative off of 2K22. So it is them, working with the pieces they got, working with this foundation that they've already made and being able to hone in a little bit more. I feel like I can feel that a little bit. The UI feels a bit more, like, it feels like there's more going on, right? In terms of the transitions when you navigate the menus and all that.
I feel like there's
a
a
bit more
style
polished
this year, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. There's a cohesive style to the menus, to the presentation, like you're talking about.
Yeah. And so some of that stuff I'm feeling. I think for me the big thing to highlight in terms of what I played of the game so far, I've hopped into the 2K showcase mode, which
John Cena won, yeah.
the John Cena one. Last year it was focused on Rey Mysterio. This year it's focused on John Cena, and I like the angle they take with it, which is you are going through a lot of John Cena's historical matches, but you're playing the person or the wrestler that John Cena is facing off against, and you're going through a lot of his losses. At least so far for where I'm at.
No,
I don't
yeah,
know if that
it's based on his losses, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because that was the thing that caught me by surprise. I was expecting for this to be like a celebratory thing, which it is, but I love the fact that you go through and you are doing matches where John Cena early in his career faced off against The Undertaker, and like you play as The Undertaker and you fight John Cena, or like early in his career where he faces off against Rob Van Dam at ECW. And that was one of the things I noticed where like as I was playing as Rob Van Dam, I do his taunt and he's like, Rob Van, and the audience does it too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, they've nailed what these modern WWE games need to be.
Yeah.
Like, once again, playing through 2K23, I am reminded about how fun wrestling games can be. It's funny because technically you might be able to make the argument that the WWE games function as fighting games, but they almost function more as role-playing, not in the video game role-playing sense, but more so in the I am telling a story through my actions sort of sense. And so in the showcase mode, they have the system where John Cena is literally telling you a story. It starts off with live action John Cena on a mic telling his story about how he went to ECW, faced Rob Van Dam, the gravity of that match, all this stuff. Transitions into you playing the match, and the game will ask you to, or it'll put it up in John Cena narration of, oh yeah, and here is where Rob Van Dam hit me with a suplex, and then that's when you're supposed to, in the match, hit John Cena with the suplex, and then you follow all those directions, and periodically that'll transition into the live action footage of the actual match going on, and it switches back and forth, similarly to last year when they did that with the Rey Mysterio showcase.
Yeah.
And again, it brings me back to this idea that wrestling most of the time honestly is storytelling, and it is how do we create these moments for the audience to get hyped, and these moments for the audience to root for the hero, root against the villain, do all this stuff. And even when I'm outside of that, the showcase mode, I like to play the faction mode, which is similar to the FIFA Ultimate Team, right? Where you're collecting these factions of wrestlers and getting these cards that could be rare cards, all this stuff, so you can play as a wrestler. Even when I'm playing outside of the showcase mode, I am still telling stories. I am still, getting the clothesline, taunting, making sure that I get the pin after my finisher. I'm not going to finish this match. I'm not going to pin this person until I get the finisher off. And these games do such a good job of facilitating that experience. But yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot so far, right? I think sometimes even more so than 2K22, and I think that might just be because 2K22 did such a good job of resetting what the formula for a WWE video game can be, and 2K23 feels like it's pushing that forward in these little ways. But I'm enjoying it a lot. What about you?
Yeah, no, like I said, I gave it a 4 out of 5 last year for 2K22. Jumping in, this is iterative on that, right? Remember, of course, that they took a year off. WWE 2K20 was a huge disaster. They didn't do a 2K21. They came back with 2K22, a new system for, more in the line with a No Mercy system, right? Of grapples and strong strikes and weak strikes and reversals and things like that. Trying to simplify it, but make it something you really get into with the reversals that are now like not tied to things, just triangle, get out of finishers, smaller windows and stuff. They've kept that, right? They've kept that core that most people, it's impossible to please everybody. The majority of people and myself loved that, thought this is really good and this is really fun. And what stood out about 2K22, right, was that for the first time in years, I had a WWE game that like I was excited to get home to. I was excited to put more time into. Like I played for months afterwards. Not you can bring in, of course, we did KFW. KFW will be back. Me and Mike are working on a return date for that for our little video game wrestling league. So there was that. But I mean, even outside of that, new DLC would drop and I would go and play that night. And I would play it in my faction. I would play it, and there's so many different modes that you can get into if you want to or stay out of if you don't want to. Like what speaks to you and what do you want to do? Getting 2K23 and jumping into it, everything you said is correct. I feel of like I can go into the minutia of it, but there are a bunch of things of like, oh, it's the same system you knew, but like they filled the cracks, the gaps with these kind of things. Like, okay, cool. Like your stamina bar that you're building up to, the big blue bar to do your signature or whatever is now segmented, and you can use it sometimes to get out of the ring or do special moves or do, like to roll out of the way or do. It's like, oh, do a possum pin, like. There's all these things they've added in to make that more dynamic, I think. And there's a whole bunch of bells and whistles and things like that. And then like, blah, blah. But it is still the same core just built on. And as somebody who reviewed the wrestling games and then also reviewed and was always a big fan of the NCAA and Madden games, I hate the reductive nature of, it's a roster update. You know what I mean? Because obviously hundreds of people worked really hard to make something and they are turning it around in 9 months, which is a Herculean task and yada, yada, yada. I think that WWE 2K23 is a 4 out of 5. I think it has maintained that same stride. It is a great game. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think you pop in and go, holy shit. Like, what the, this is so different. And like last year there were holy shit moments, but then there were the moments like, why is this taking so long to load? What is going on? And like load times on things I've noticed are better this time around. I haven't sat and timed them and done that whole thing, but I know from my own bitching and complaining about WWE 2K22, they're better instances. And here it is again. Mileage will vary. What do you want to get into? Like, just like with Rey Mysterio's showcase, for Cena's showcase, I love the idea of it. I think it's cool, but then when I'm playing them, the novelty wears off pretty quick for me because it is do this very specific thing, right? And so sometimes the game isn't cooperating. I'm trying to get John Cena to lay across the thing so RVD can do the leg drop out of the ring, but and then you got to pause it and you got to go into the menu and be like, what do they want me to do?
That's my one big complaint with that mode is, they are telling you what to do step by step. And half the time I find myself having to pause and be like, all right, because it'll be, Undertaker hit me with his like front flip clothesline or whatever. And I'm like, all right, like it's not very obvious how to do the specific moves, right?
Yeah.
Like, if they said light grapple or if they said light attack or heavy attack or grapple, you know what that is. But if they tell you the name of a specific move, you have to go into the menu and go, all right, but like
figure out,
what is what's the
and
button
they've
combo
done
to
it.
do that?
I don't want to say better job because I didn't go and compare and contrast. I feel more like they've done a better job of I hit start and I go in there and it's the little thing pops up and tells me what it wants and it says a little bit about how to do it. Like it isn't as blind as it was before, but still like. Even for it's just a buzzkill for me when they go to the real footage, but they have to blur out the face of the ref and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, all right. And I think Rey Mysterio, I thought, talked more than John Cena talks in the matches. Like before the matches, you get a really great, introduction and afterwards an outro from Cena about it. That's fine. Anyways, though, that's not my mode, right? But I'll jump over and like My Rise, I'm having more fun this year with than I did last year. My Rise, as with wrestling games in general, let alone your buffet platter of WWE modes to go through here. My Rise is an acquired taste. Tim hated it last year because it is very much every clip you've ever seen, audience, of NBA 2K modes where the guy stiffly talks to you and there's bad VO and there's that. And it's like, it's tongue-in-cheeky and whatever, but it's like, I like it because it is a career mode. There's branching paths. There's different things to unlock. And this year, rather than just throw you to the performance center and then have you work your way up, which was fine last year, but again, something I kind of got sick of and didn't play much of after a while. This one you pick either to be the lock or the legacy. And these are scripted storylines you play through that have just one voice actor for your character. A huge benefit this year that was not there last year, which is ridiculous, is that if I made Gruesome Greggy if I had the Gruesome Greggy from KFW that I could play online and do whatever, I'd have to remake him from scratch inside of My Rise. And now you can take your created characters and bring them in, as I did when I made Roger Pocorna here, as you see. Of course, I made him a cop because he's New York's finest. You know what I mean?
Jesus
Roger
Christ.
Pocorna. He's not happy to be a
I'm
cop.
sure he appreciates that a lot.
He is not happy about it. And so it's the goofy thing there of MVP dunking on Roger because he screwed up a match he got invited to be part of Evolution. And it's like, it's a cool thing. Yeah, there's the side stories you turn and Caleb Braxton's like, oh man, like this guy said he thinks the best thing is so you got to go do a finisher as a match. And it's like, this is weird and lame, but it gets me the attribute points and I can do it. Or you can ignore it and just main path it. And like, that's a draw to me. Like there's something else there. I am thoroughly entertained by the game that surrounds the gameplay. However, on top of that, my faction and the gameplay is still a huge draw for me just to come in and play. And I'm still like, ooh, I don't have duds. Like I got Drew McIntyre and I got a Cena card, but like these aren't my boys. Yeah. I want to get my boys to actually have them in my faction.
What Cena card do you get?
Just a regular old.
Gotcha.
I think it's gold, but it's, jorts.
I got the prototype.
Oh yeah,
I had to look that up. I was like, prototype,
his like debut,
his debut, before he was John Cena. I was like, oh, I don't like this at all. And when the worst is like the commentary will not refer to him as Cena, and like it's like the prototype. I mean, he does the attitude adjustment, which used to be called when he was a prototype, the proto bomb. And I was like, I don't like this at all. I hate I want John Cena. I just don't want this version of John Cena, which is funny.
In the live chat, Mike says, can they import characters from the last game or do they have to remake everybody? You got to remake everybody.
Yeah, that was a bummer. I saw
all
that.
The KFW, like the thousands, if not millions of creations that were amazing in 2K22 are not compatible to come over to this, which is a huge thing.
It feels like an oversight.
I guarantee. Well, if you know what, I need to do the thing we funded on Patreon in January October for the launch of the Spare Bedroom is me doing a video essay, a kind of funny special presentation, a showcase, right? And mine is what WWE should do about WWE games, and I want to touch on all that, so I don't want to get into it. But I think it's both an oversight. I don't think it's an oversight. Nobody there is caught off guard by this. I think it's more we didn't have time, and then it's the fact of it sounds simple. And I think there'd be simple ways in quotes around it, which I don't know because I'm not a game developer. But it's more the fact of like, all right, cool. We didn't put this move or this logo or this texture into the game this year. So if that character is referencing that file from 2K22, what does it do when it goes to 2K23 and that file's not there? Jan, I see you nodding. I've seen you being a part of it. Sorry, as me and Bless have withheld our conversation.
This is y'all's lane. Go for it.
And that's what I wanted to know about. Like, I don't know if wrestling video games have ever spoken to you. I know you like FIFA. I know you like FIFA Ultimate Team to a degree. Like,
I don't do Ultimate Team.
Okay.
That's why I don't hate EA like everybody else, because I don't like get lost in the packs, and I know it's bad or whatever over there, but I don't tab over there,
Yeah.
I play with Edwin. I play with Blessing. I play with the computer. I play with Blessing again, and again. Like, it just runs. That's the rotation. That's kind of it. Yeah, for me, I'm not really into wrestling games, at least not like this, like kind of semi element of it. But I am curious to know if you guys think that the annual should just be back in the rotation. Do you feel like they could use that additional break to create more of a differentiated line between the annual releases? And then what do you think it needs to reach that 5 out of 5, or like what also would make it dip down? Because I do think for me, as like a casual FIFA player, I end up in that state where, again, I'm not going into like the nitty gritty of these like different mechanics. I kind of just like the new features they roll out. I love the game. Some people will be like, this one year was way better than this other year. And I'm like, I'm having fun every year, man. I don't really know. So I'm curious as to how attuned y'all are with those nuances and what you think, kind of doing it a little bit to like what you have like in store content wise. Like, what would it take to elevate it? Do you think they could use a different cadence? Like, would you want to see that as a fan? Curious to know like where y'all are at with this.
Yeah, I mean, my whole hypothesis and laid out presentation I will give, and you all have to watch eventually as a special presentation, I kind of funny, right? Is the idea that if you wanted to go to be an amazing game, if you wanted to really turn that corner, you have to blow up the way WWE and 2K think about these games. And what I mean by that is you need to move to a live model. And it doesn't need to be, I'm not trying to venture out into games as a service and this, that, and the other and argue about that. I have a whole thought process on that. But that is the solution. The idea here is the fact that if the hair on your neck goes up at the sound of that, oh my God, but the microtransactions and the things there and this, that, and the other, I would urge you to stop and think about what you're paying $70 for right now. Because right now you're getting a roster jam-packed with people. There's no denying how many people are in this game and how awesome that is. How many of those people do you care about? How many of those people are actual, like, oh my God, like there's so many, and I'm a WWE guy. I mean, fuck, I guess I should have said, full disclosure, I host a show for WWE too, but I think at this point you all know how much I love wrestling games. You think, I'm not gonna fucking lie about it. I don't watch NXT. So like in my faction, Proving Grounds, go fight all these guys, and I'm just fighting NXT jobber after NXT jobber who's in the game that I paid for. That's the thing. It's like I would much rather, and they could do packs and they could do things and they could do a whole bunch of different ways that I will pitch you all on how I think they can make it make sense. Where annually you can put in $70 and feel like you're getting a full thing. But more than anything, it's that wrestling moves so quickly, and you can look right now at Sami Zayn. Right? The bloodline, this fucking, honestly, we will look back in 20 years and this is going to be one of those things like, man, what a storyline this was. What storytelling this was. This was so incredible. And you can see, I feel, that reflected in the game of how fast wrestling moves. Because obviously throughout the entire fucking gestation period of this game, Sami Zayn was with the bloodline. He was with Roman Reigns. He was with the Usos. He was feeling Usi. It was a whole thing. This is great. And then what? In the past 3 months or whatever, I guess a little bit more than that, right? Because I was there. So it was Rumble, right? Yeah, Rumble. Jesus. So 3 months. Two months and a couple weeks, right? It all fell apart. He leaves the bloodline. And I think it's something that 2K's like, shit, we can't ignore this. This is like the biggest thing going in wrestling, in WWE. So I think they prioritize getting Sammy a new shirt and doing these things, but even the commentators are like, oh, I feel he's kind of Usi. Like, it's like they're referencing things that are no longer make sense, and they're also not referencing these giant things that are his, the biggest thing that happened in WWE this past year. And so it's like, for me, it is such a missed opportunity that WWE commits to this, because it's always been, I think I saw somebody's review today about 23 being like, oh, it's, and I don't keep a running list of it, right? But they're like, oh man, it's one of the most up-to-date rosters in so long, right? And there are so many WWE games you can look at to like, holy shit, 30 people, 20 people, 15 people on this list don't even work here anymore. They're not even part of the company anymore. They had bad breakups with the company and they're still here. I think that works against them so much. It makes it at times stale. This year doesn't seem to be that way, but look at it in 3 months and we'll see that if you were to move to a live model, like, it's ridiculous that WrestleMania is happening April, right? The first weekend in April, a whole bunch of us are going. We're going to have a great time in LA. It's going to be fantastic. At the end of, I would say night one, but let's be conservative since it's 2 nights. The end of WrestleMania on Sunday, the first thing they should say is, it should end and they should go, thank you so much. And then they should run a trailer of like, download the WrestleMania arena right now in WWE 2K23. Go get that doesn't happen. WrestleMania Hollywood will not be in this game until next year. Like, that's ridiculous. And like, somebody comes out in really cool, an alternate outfit, you know what I mean? Like Rey Mysterio's wrestling Dominic Mysterio at WrestleMania. They have dope ass outfits. You should be able to download those that night. And I know that like, this can really skate into microtransaction hell really quickly. And do we trust 2K not to do that? And yada, yada, yada. You're not forced to buy this. You don't have to buy it. Maybe once every year it comes around and it is a giant pack you spend $70 on and you get a whole bunch of new wrestlers and a new storyline and a new whatever. But if they are committed to this gameplay system, which I think they should, because it is fun, it is approachable, it is easy to learn, difficult to master, they need to double down and turn this into a platform that is representing wrestling at the light speed it moves at, so that people can be excited at all times and go. And I think, I haven't seen this, but again, in the scuttlebutt today, I was reading somebody else's review and they mentioned that they've said, and Chad, if you could keep me, I know you're not usually, you're wronging on PS I Love You, but make sure I'm getting this right, that they've said 2K that my faction will get cards with new gimmicks and our tires in there in terms of to try to be more reflective of what's happening, which is like, oh, that's interesting, because I can't take my faction wrestler back into the game. You know what I mean? So I can't have that thing. It's a weird way to do it, but wrestling is fun and it's exciting and it's in the moment. And like last year was a great example of 2K22 dropped, and I forget if it was right before or right after, but then Cody Rhodes debuted. And I was like, oh my God, I fucking love Cody Rhodes. It'd be awesome to play as him. And I had to wait an entire fucking year. Shout out to the WWE creation community, who of course are killing it, making like, I can't wait to get give it 2 more days, get in there, download my Taz, take Taz into my Rise, do all this shit. Like, that's amazing. But like, WWE and 2K, it's crazy that they're not more on top of it that way. And I think if you were to get to that kind of system that was there and go, it'd be interesting. I do think it's a slippery slope with transactions.
Yeah. There's not much I can really add to that. I think you pretty much nailed everything. I'm not somebody that looks forward to the yearly releases. That's one of the reasons why when it comes to FIFA, I'm super into FIFA now. I took a long break from FIFA, right? Like I was playing early on, like yearly up from like 2010 up until 2015, and then I just burnt out on it and I was gone. And I lightly came back in 2020, played a little bit of 2021, and then now 2023. Now that I've had all this time to rest, coming back to FIFA 23 has been such a blast for me. But I don't know how long this is gonna last, right? Like I don't know if I'm gonna play like FIFA 24 when that comes out. The yearly release cadence. You imagine they do it because they know that's guaranteed money. You know, they know that
sure.
if we make people spend that money, they're gonna buy it.
I think that part of the problem is that I don't think WWE's had anybody sit down and explain that you could make more money this way. You know what I mean? You would make more money and keep the fans happier and engaged in doing this. Right here in the chat, Bander SN, watching live on patreon.com/KindaFunny, just like you could, thank you so much, says, imagine a wrestler quits WWE and 2K deletes them off the game. I'm not insulting you, Bander. You're obviously a great, kind of funny best friend here all the time, but you're being so short-sighted. Yes, imagine that, sure, but imagine you already own the character. They're not taking away something you have. It's like a Fortnite skin. It should be like the Fortnite item shop.
Yeah.
And where maybe not every day, but at least every month, there's a rotating thing going through there. And it's like, yeah, it's a limited time to get, The Miz in his debut outfit or whatever, his latest outfit at Rumble or whatever it is. And it would be this thing of suddenly, if you're thinking about it from an expanded scope, right now on 2K23, I'm locked to the wrestlers that are on this game and the ones I downloaded, and then that's it, right? And I'm including DLC and creations, right? What I'm talking about here is the fact that, okay, cool, you put it in there and all right, I have all the wrestlers from the base game, and then I have all the wrestlers from the base game the next year, and the next year, and the next year, and like suddenly you have thousands of things. You have a library of Roman Reigns to play as and go through and do. Like, I think that'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah, and I think that would add a lot for me too for the way I play. Like and Shannon, your question of why 4 out of 5, what would take it to a 5 out of 5? I think for me it comes down to a lot of the little details. When I play my faction, I like that mode just because I like the idea of collecting all these different wrestlers. But there's something about that mode that feels static as well, where I log in and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I do the weekly towers, and then I do the faction versus faction mode. And this year they added in an online mode for it, which is cool. We can play against other people. But to your live model pitch, right? I think it'd be really cool if either every few weeks or every month there is a themed, hey, this is the DX tower, or this is the Randy Orton, John Cena tower. Here are themed towers that you can follow along to and tune into, and you play through them and you get these exclusive cards or whatever, right? Make it feel like more of a live thing.
They do that to a degree, but it's one of the questions. If I know, I'm blowing my whole blessing show / special presentation, whatever the fuck we're calling it. But Anthony Corbett says, if they can make more money, then why doesn't Madden, FIFA, and other 2K games as a platform do a platform instead of yearly releases? I think because this is easier. What I'm pitching is more difficult. What I'm pitching is you need to be dialed in and paying attention to your audience and going with them. Think about how hard Epic works on Fortnite. You know what I mean? To make that be what it is. I think, and I'm talking out my ass maybe a bit, but not really, but stick with me. I don't think that Madden, FIFA, and other 2 games, NBA, right, are as dialed in as a fan base as wrestling is. And stick with me because it makes sense, I think, for a Madden. I'm a Bears fan. I want the latest Bears roster. I buy it. Yeah, I could. As a platform, it's not so much of oh, well, do you want to download this guy or this alternate thing for the it's not the same way of wrestling is a story. The story is constantly evolving. It's constantly going. There's people debuting and leaving all the time. There's legends that are coming all the time. If you committed to a platform and had a steady spigot of just hey, it is every week we put up a legend, and that means that you can put up. Yeah, I mean, think about how many fucking Undertaker outfits there have been that you could go throughout the year to spread out and spread that way. I think there's a way to really serve that WWE fan and have them literally have it be, this is destination gameplay. After every Monday after Raw, there is a main event challenge that you should go do. And they do that where you can sign on and go online, and it's today's match is Elimination Chamber. This but it's no one sitting there going like, no, this is like our gatherings place. This is where we should go. This is what we should do. And like, you should come be a part of this. Like, I think there's so much to do there when you talk about the passion of WWE fans, because I'm one of them. And I would be like stoked to see the game have a identity that is running concurrently with the WWE universe and is a part of it. And that's honestly for 2K23. Now, is this my own personal bias to a degree? Maybe, but stick with me. I love the fact that this game is basically hosted by Xavier Woods, aka Austin Creed from Up Up Down Down, right? Like when you turn it on, Austin pops up to be the tutorial, to walk you through and explain it, right? GM mode, GM mode has been such a big passion project for Austin on Up Up Down Down forever, playing old games with GM mode. The fact that they brought GM mode back last year and they've actually improved it greatly this year, him and Tyler Breeze doing their like they've made them characters within the game to the point that, you know, Woods is on the main menu as a thing there for my GM. And it's like having that narrative backbone to that even is so helpful. And I'd love to see them run with that kind of thing and make this a gathering hub for it.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, the game's great though. I've been ranting about things I want them to do.
Yeah.
What else did I put down here? I wanted to put out, great soundtrack this year. That's the bolder shit, but like
honestly, I noticed the same thing. Like they have the Doja Cat song that was from Elvis in there, that I really like. But then also quite a few other songs where I'm like, oh shit, like they're doing the damn thing. And I saw as I was reading the reviewer's guide, they mentioned that John Cena helped curate the soundtrack, which I didn't realize. But also, you know, makes sense. How much was he involved to that? Who knows? But there is more of a hip hop vibe to the soundtrack this year that I noticed, and like certain selections where I'm like, damn, all right, they're doing the damn thing. I think there's Post Malone in there as well too. But yeah, I like the soundtrack as well.
Yeah. I think it's a really great year so far. And more than anything, I'm glad that it's not stale, and I'm glad that they didn't take a step back. You know, the big thing they've added outside, because I'm talking about there's a bunch of little additions and things that, you know, the minutia to go in there in terms of just moment to moment gameplay, but they did add war games, which is, you know, 2 rings bumped up against each other inside a steel cage. It's a crazy match where the match doesn't technically begin until everybody comes out, but everybody comes out one at a time, so you're just beating the shit out of each other in there with items and weapons until it's one fall, one submission. Like it's a fun match. It's a fun thing to do. It's a nice enough addition, but even without that, because I've only done like 2 matches that way, I'm enjoying the content inside, and I'm excited to play more of it. So I think it's great.
Yeah, I really want to try out the war games thing because I've not gotten around to that. But that might answer like one of my final things when it comes to Jana's question, like the 4 out of 5 versus 5 out of 5. What would elevate it? What would do all that stuff? There's like for WWE 2K23 and 22. The way I interact with it is more like action figures like hitting each other, as opposed to like a very solid mechanical like game of skill, right? It's almost like this weird in between of simulation and then also party game and then also fighting game, and like it sits in the middle in this weird way where I have a lot of fun with it because it is, hey, I'm actual Rey Mysterio, and it is me trying to hit my signatures and all this stuff, but when you like boil it down to the mechanics of it, there's something about it that doesn't still feel as solid. I do want to try out war games because that sounds like a really fun mode, and maybe could be the thing where I get I turn into a tryhard and like, you know, sweat with it and do all that stuff. But that's one thing I noticed about it as well, is just the fact that like, you know, I have fun with it, but I'm not trying to up my skill in WWE.
Interesting.
I guess that's the thing.
See, I am. You know what I mean? Especially with some of the things they've added. I'm trying to dodge more. There's a new stamina thing that'll keep you from doing too much or whatever. But what I appreciate about it and what I love about these games is the fact that I was doing a My Faction match before this, right, where I was using my Cena card against some NXT guy. I have no fucking idea who, right? But we took each other, like, you know, to the distance where it was like both people were beaten to shit, right? And it was like anything can happen, and we're both doing cool moves, and he reversed out of my finisher. And it's like, it's that I love it that in a fighting game, like when I was like struggling back in the day with Injustice, and I'm like, I just want to see this fucking story, and where I put the controller down and I would just die so that the third try would be easier and I could get through the fucking story. This one is the one that, unless it's with the fucking, you know, do this move right here, you have to do this thing to advance the story, or you have to do this over and over and over again. When it is just a match, when it is just my faction, I am in the spots of like, man, even if I lose, this has been cool. You know what I mean?
That's
like, there's been so many good reversals. There's been so many different things. Like, he dodged this, he did that. The ref got knocked down, and he took advantage that way. I'm like, this is actually cool. Or, you know, I went for a high risk maneuver, and he reversed out of it. Like, that is what brings me back to 2K22 before, and now is bringing me back to 2K23. Is the idea that like the core mechanic is so good.
I do like the stamina system that they added too.
Yeah.
Like, I think that takes me back to SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, which had a stamina system that was super aggressive, but also like when I was playing over the weekend, I was like, oh, I can't run. Like I can't, because it keeps you from doing a lot. Like you can't run when your stamina is out. Like you have a very limited tool set, so you have to like wait there for a second, catch your breath, and I think that adds quite a bit. But God, yeah, like the WWE 2K games, the modern ones have nailed it in so many aspects that like I wouldn't have imagined a few years ago. Seeing what went down with 2K20, and so I like where we're at. But yeah, I hear you on everything you're talking about in terms of the ways you're going to elevate it further with like a games as a service stuff. I would like to see them go that direction. Do you think you will ever see them go that direction?
No, not anytime soon. You know what I mean? I think I'll make a really compelling case, and they'll still be like, no, we won't do this. We're going to stick with this because again, this is easier. Like it is like a thing of like I think. Especially for a 2K and a bottom line thing, like there is risk involved. They know there's no risk here. And also with WWE and the licensing of just like what they're expecting. Like, does WWE corporate really understand if you came in and you're like, this is what we're going to do and it's going to be this and it's going to be like Fortnite. But a lot of people fuck this up. But what it is, it's like, I don't know, man. But I'd love to see them try. We'll have to wait and see. Like we said, 4 out of 5 for WWE 2K23. But there's a lot more for all of us to play and we'll keep doing it. We'll keep you posted just like you should keep us posted on what you're doing by going to patreon.com/kindafunny. On patreon.com/kindafunny, you can watch us record the show live, ad-free, like people over here were asking questions about the games we're talking about and reviewing. Of course, you can get dozens of bonus episodes each and every month, and you can get a bevy of other benefits. But most importantly, you can get the show ad-free, like I said. You're not on Patreon, so here's a word from our sponsor.
Shout out to Honey for sponsoring this episode. Honey is the easy way to save when shopping on your iPhone or computer. And thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is a thing of the past. And we all know there's nothing better than the feeling of saving money. Honey is the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it finds to your cart. When you check out, the Honey button appears and all you have to do is click apply coupons. You'll wait a few seconds. You see the fun little dancing guy. Honey searches for coupons and it finds you the best ones. And then you just watch the prices drop. We here at Kinda Funny have been using Honey for years and it's helped us save thousands on tech, costumes, food, you name it. Honestly, I just love how easy it is to just set and forget and save. That's the best part. Honey doesn't just work on desktops, it works on your phone too. You just activate it on Safari on your phone, you save on the go. If you don't already have Honey, you could be straight up missing out. You can get PayPal Honey for free at joinhoney.com/kindafunny. That's joinhoney.com/kindafunny.
Bless, what's happening this week in PlayStation?
I want to ask the question, what do we want from a PlayStation 5 Pro? Today, actually, as of the day we're recording, PS5 Pro is in development, could release late 2024. This was reported by Tom Henderson at Insider Gaming. Insider Gaming sources have confirmed that the PS5 Pro is in development and could release with a tentative release date of late 2024. Insider Gaming previously reported that a new PlayStation 5 with a detachable disc drive is scheduled to release later this year. It's understood that this new model will phase out the current PS5 to cut down on production and shipping costs. In spite of the widespread reports, this is not the PS5 Pro model. Quote, this is just the beginning of new hardware coming to PlayStation users this generation.
Look at this picture we're looking at here.
Barry, where'd you find this picture? Oh my God.
I mean, it's just as simple as just Googling PS5 Pro.
You gotta like, because I feel like we're gonna have this discussion probably a lot in the coming few years. You gotta just like start photoshopping like yourself. Make some crazy PS5 Pros and PS6s for that matter.
That's a lot of work.
This is just the beginning of new hardware coming to PlayStation users this generation, said one source when talking about the detachable disc drive console. As for what the PS5 specs will entail, details are limited. However, a recently published patent by PlayStation architect Mark Cerny suggests that Sony Interactive Entertainment is looking to accelerate ray tracing performance in video games. Just like with the PS4 to the PS4 Pro, we can generally guess pretty confidently that the PS5 Pro will have increased visuals, performance, and speeds. But as for leaked details, we'll have to wait until a later date to release those. Janet Garcia, what do you want to see from a PlayStation 5 Pro?
And then this is like so many things that are convoluted here for me because I well, I want to see whatever the hell Barrett has pulled up here of like for those just listening, it's a PS5, but then it's like what if you split another PS5 in half and you put the ends on the ends of that PS5, like a PS5 double-decker sandwich?
I was gonna say it's like a club sandwich or a Big Mac PS5.
Yeah. I don't think I want it to be bigger. I think we can all kind of agree on that. I guess it's weird because like I don't know. I like the PS5 we have now. I think slimmer is the obvious answer because historically that's what we've seen from upgraded models, like things that are either slimmed down or a little bit more powerful or both is essentially the way to go. So I would imagine this would be the same. I don't think I want this this image. I mean, PS5S, which also, oh my god, I hate that the S looks like the 5 and it looks like a Wii. I hope we don't get this because it looks kind of ugly to me. But I'm classic Wii hater. I grew to like the PS5 design, so I still want something a little bit funky. But I do think something smaller, shorter would be good. But what makes this weird for me is I'm a PS5 disc owner, and like that's what I would be no matter what. Like I love having like my disc drive. So
Man, is there an earthquake?
no, that's just me tapping on my desk.
Okay. I was like, damn, like she's not even reacting to it.
Yeah, it doesn't faze me anymore, living in LA and stuff. But
Of course.
yeah, I guess just a little bit sleeker, something cuter. I'm curious how this will be too for if they do have this Pro SKU, what that looks like for customization. Like I hope there's barely any faceplates. Like I'm just looking out for myself, honestly, with this question. Like thinking about what does the future look like and what would cause me to upgrade it, if anything. I guess additional memory would be nice, just built in from the jump. Those are kind of things that I would think towards for a Pro model.
It's funny because I've talked about this with both Tim and Andy, and it's very hard for me to think about a lot that I would want from a PlayStation 5 Pro. Like the one ask that I've talked about that I think would be awesome would be to get the best of both worlds when we talk about performance mode and fidelity mode. Like if I'm able to smush those together and get both. Again, I am not technologically educated enough to know like how that happens or if that can happen. But yeah, if I can get high frame rate with very high fidelity, like let's fucking go. I don't want to make the choice anymore. I think that would be cool. But aside from that, I go back, like this question reminds me a bit of if you've seen the Kobe Bryant commercial with Kanye West back in the day, rest in peace Kanye West and Kobe Bryant for that matter. But like the commercial where he's like, Kanye's like, I want to get better. How much better can I get? And Kobe's like, better. Like I want to get, how much more money can I make? You can make more money. And then Kobe's like, can you be the same beast and a different animal? And Kanye's like, what the fuck does that mean? I feel that way about the PS5 Pro a little bit.
What were they selling in that commercial?
It was for Kobe system, which I still don't know what Kobe system was. But it's the idea, like I have that idea in terms of like, what the fuck more can you add to the PS5 that like would make me want to show up to a PS5 Pro? I think I would want a PS5 Slim. The idea of getting a smaller PS5 appeals to me. You think we'll get that?
Oh yeah.
I think that'd be cool.
Shorter. I don't think it needs to even be that much slimmer because it's not like too big, but it's tall.
Sure.
Yeah, that thing is. Every time I look at it, I swear to God, my PS5 gets bigger. Like it's taking up more space in my room.
I love it. It's such a glorious monument to PlayStation, just standing there.
God, what would you want from a PS5 Pro?
This is an interesting one, right? Because I'm right there with you. Of like the PS5 is such a step up, but I don't sit there and go, oh man, this is what I feel like is missing, right? Like I would say, as always, like faster internet, smaller footprint, but like. Even then, the internet's so much faster than my PlayStation 4 was in terms of like how fast it can download and upload. That's great. And then I do like how big it is, but I totally understand making it smaller and all that stuff. And then when you get into the bells and whistles of 8K, however megahertz, all that jazz, that's when my eyes gloss over, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that you tech nerds are out there fighting the good fight. I remember being like, why would I play anything on PC? 60 frames a second. Who fucking cares? And then I got a PlayStation 5 and it had 60 frames. I'm like, or PlayStation 4 Pro. I was like, actually, this shit's pretty good. You know what I mean? I like the frames or whatever. And so I guess now 120 on everything? Sure, whatnot. I don't care. Go ahead. Put all that in there. But like, I'm super happy with my PlayStation 5 Pro, but I'd be excited, or my PlayStation 5, but I'd be excited to see what a Pro brings to the table.
Do you think we actually get, I know this is a report we're reading, and I guess it's insider gaming. Do you think we get a PS5 Pro in end of next year? End of 2024?
That seems aggressive, but it could. I guess it isn't that aggressive, though, right?
I mean,
what was the cadence last year?
Yeah.
Last gen.
Huh?
What was the cadence last gen like from launch of the 4 and the release of the Pro?
Good question. It feels like the PS5 released yesterday, but it has been. Well, it was end of 2020 that it released, so it's been quite a few years. By the end of 2024, you're talking about 4 years.
PlayStation 4 was November 15th, 2013, and then November 10th, 2016. So 3 years.
3 years.
So we're past that point for this.
So you believe it?
Yeah. I mean, well, like this is how it's going to go, right? Like this is how the Switch has such juggernaut numbers, of course, is because, you know, they put out multiple versions of the Switch and they put out great games, don't get me wrong. And it's what we saw with PlayStation 4 when that was a runaway success. Yeah, of course. Let's extenuate this launch lineup and this. Let's extenuate this life cycle, and of course the amount of games we have on it already, and then get the people who already bought a PlayStation 4 to now buy the Pro. It'll be amazing. And I think this year, you know, PlayStation 5 numbers are insane, especially considering all the shortages and how hard it was to get one. And so if they're able to lessen that and bring people in, you assume lower the price point to a degree, like, and that's maybe for the detachable disc drive.
Yeah.
Then you give off the Pro for whatever that is, whenever that's adding. Like, yeah, I could see it being real, and I think you're gonna get it, and it just makes sense for where we are now and what worked last generation and going forward here of, you know, being iterative in the same console generation.
Yeah. If this detachable disk drive thing is true, like,
Which still seems super weird, but I get
it
it seems weird.
It seems
but
weird,
I
but
never use my fucking disk drive, so what do I
and
get?
that's the thing. I think that's where it makes sense is if you are gearing up to release a PS5 Pro in 2024, if in 2023 you can maybe phase out the disc PS5 so that way you only have the cheaper SKU as the one available, and
Yeah.
then have the detachable disk drive for people that own discs and want to be able to have that option, but then only have the PS5 Slim as the available version. Or what do they call it? I forget what they call the non-disc drive version, the PS5 digital version. But have that as the one available SKU, and then next year have the PS5 Pro come in at $600 maybe,
Yeah.
and have it be a $400-$600 thing. I think you help to
See, I would think
not
that
have
the
it be a messy
discless
thing.
version phases out the current PlayStation 5, right?
Yeah.
Brings the price down.
Yeah.
Then there's this add-on disc drive if you want it, and then the Pro steps in and it's the price of what a PlayStation 5 is right now.
So you would think the PS5 Pro would then end up as $500.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Let's talk about Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog's next game has been decided. This is from Tom Ivan at Video Games Chronicle.
I wonder who he's quoting.
I wonder who asked the question that got this answer. Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann has explained the process the studio went through when deciding which game to develop next. In an interview with KindaFunny, Druckmann was asked if he felt under pressure to create another hip IP like The Last of Us or Uncharted, which Naughty Dog owner Sony could turn into a multimedia franchise and support for years to come. Druckmann responded by saying that the studio's success has afforded it the luxury of being able to choose to work on what it's most passionate about. Quote, "I am very lucky that I don't have to think like that," he said. "I joined a studio that was already so successful that we could be kind of prima donnas and just do whatever we want. I know not everybody has that privilege, but it's not something I take lightly. So at the end of every project, we purposely explore several different projects. Some of them might be a sequel, and then a bunch of new ideas, and then we really feel like, where do our passions lie? Because that's the fire that has to sustain us for years to come. And if you pick the wrong project and then you burn out from that idea because you weren't that passionate about it, 2 years into a 4-year project, you're fucked. That's how you, I think, make mediocre anything if you lose your excitement from it." End quote. Druckmann wasn't willing to divulge if the studio had chosen to work on The Last of Us Part 3 or something else. Quote, "I know the fans really want Last of Us Part 3, he said. I hear about it all the time, and all I can say is that, look, we're already into our next project, so the decision has already been made. I can't wait. I can't say what it is, but that's the process we went through. That there was a lot of consideration of different things, and we picked the thing that we're most excited for." End quote. Janet Garcia, what is Naughty Dog cooking?
It's that Jack 2 remake that I
Let's
so
go.
just right on time. You know, they heard my prayers, and they're like, "You're right, it's not good," which also everyone told you from the jump, and now we're remaking it. But no, in all seriousness, what I'm so curious about is following, you know, that through line, what those couple projects were. You imagine one of them probably was something with Last of Us. I still am holding out hope that it's a new IP. I just want to see something different. I would also love to see something tonally and a little bit maybe genre different than what they are used to. I don't know if they'll stray that far, because I feel like, again, if we talk about the magic being in what the passion is and vice versa, it seems that the answer to that question again and again are these action adventure narratively rich games. Again, very different styles, like Uncharted and Last of Us are very like different. I mean, one franchise I like and one franchise is Uncharted, but they still have a lot of overlap in stylization. So I'd be a little shocked if they went too far from that general formula, but I still would love to see them just have like a new IP, a new idea, because they can always come back and do Last of Us Part 3 whenever they want. I mean, in this conversation, he's talking about we can do whatever we want whenever we want anyway. I think it's a good time to try something new, but we'll see. I feel like the easy answer would be Last of Us Part 3 because I'm sure they've thought so deeply about that universe already, and again, the gameplay was so freaking good in 2 that I imagine 3 would also be fire and exciting to make. But I hope it's something new.
Yeah, I hope, and I think it's something new. Like I think we've talked about rumors on the show about what Naughty Dog could be working on, and there's different things that are floating around. I think the rumors point to a new IP. But even in talking to Neil during the interview yesterday, one of the things that was brought up was Last of Us Part 2 and that releasing during a depressing year and it being a depressing game, and him talking about when releasing this Last of Us TV show on HBO, it felt a bit more like, oh yeah, like this is the reception to it felt a little bit brighter, right, compared to Last of Us Part 2. Like I imagine that is probably a stressful game to work on, both with the content, but then also post-launch, seeing the reception to it, seeing that it's a piece of art that you're proud of that is getting great critical reception, but I'm sure for anybody it'd still be stressful and maybe lead to burnout, seeing just the divisiveness across the audience and all this stuff. When Neil is in his quote talking about, hey, we want to pick the right project, right? We want to pick something that we're not going to burn out on idea-wise. We've had so much Last of Us, and we're going to get more Last of Us from Last of Us factions. I think if you don't want to burn out, you pick something that's not Last of Us, right?
100%.
You pick something different.
Yeah, that's right where my money's at too. Is the fact that they have had so much Last of Us going on at the studio, right? That I think you have a team working on factions, and you have to have a team working on something different, just to let people stretch their legs and move about the cabin before inevitably coming back for Part 3. Like I feel like I think they do a new IP, and then I think they come back for. Well, I think they do factions, obviously. Even though he was very clear, it's not called factions.
Yeah, Last was multiplayer.
Whatever, Neil. Shut up. What do you know? Multiplayer, new IP, and then I think you do Last of Us Part 3.
My question to you guys: I saw this floating around on Twitter. Benji Sales, I believe, put up a poll asking people, "Do you think we get Last of Us Part 3 on the PlayStation 5?" Or does it end up being a PlayStation 6 game or beyond? Where do you guys think Last of Us 3 lands?
6, I think.
Genesis PS6.
I'm hesitant just because Last of Us Part 2, in the build before that was actually official, the build up to that you would have thought, what, it's going to be a PlayStation 5 game, and that still hung on to PlayStation 4, especially with the install base, right?
Yeah, so Barrett has the poll brought up, right? Will PlayStation/Naughty Dog release The Last of Us Part 3 for PlayStation 5 this generation? 52% say yes, 47% say no. So it's a very close poll.
It's a coin flip, right? Of just really how long it takes. And are we getting multiplayer this year, or is that going to be revealed this year and then come out next year? And then how far along are they on this new thing they're working on to really get that out? That, you know what? No, I'll commit. It's a PlayStation 6 game.
Yeah, I also think no. I if I had to guess, I would say I think we get more info on Last of Us, the multiplayer game, this year. I think it comes out next year is my prediction, and then maybe 2 years from now or 3 years from now we get a new IP from Naughty Dog. And for how long video game development cycles have gotten, and for how far we are into the generation, I think a Last of Us Part 3 would take a while to actually get out. And I think for Last of Us multiplayer, you want it to have space to breathe. That's a game that I imagine they want to update over time. They want to treat it as a live game. I think if you're going to do that, then yeah, go all the way. Let this breathe as the Last of Us game for a little bit before you put out Last of Us Part 3, and that then dominates the conversation around Last of Us.
All right, fair enough.
Fair enough. Now it's time for PlayStation Picks. This is where we talk about the games that have come out this week on PlayStation and the games that we picked to play on PlayStation this week. The drop looks like this. We got Legend of Heroes, Trails of Azure for PS4, The Wreck for PS5 and PS4, Wolcen Lords of Mayhem for PS5, Anno 1800 for PS5, The Dark Pictures Switchback VR for PSVR 2, and WWE 2K23 for PS5 and PS4. Greg Miller, you've played The Wreck.
I have played The Wreck, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps you remember The Wreck. It sprung to my
attention.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. It's been a long day of content and talking. I apologize. I'm starting to grind up and die here. Hold on a second.
Greg's doing some searching. Greg's probably answering a Slack.
Yeah, go for it, Janet.
Hi.
Hey.
Oh, no, sorry. That was not me having a raised hand. I had Slack that I have to go, pretty soon.
That's what I was
So
reading. I
now
was
I'm
reading your Slack that you have to go pretty soon. Go for it.
Which, or should I just dip out now?
Yeah. Janet, here,
Okay.
I'll spoil it for you, all right? The Wreck Yeah, it's a 3D. They call it The Wreck is a mature 3D visual novel about sisterhood, motherhood,
Okay.
grief, and survival. It is not a Greg and Janet
scared.
game. It is not a Greg and Janet game.
Damn.
All right.
Damn.
Well,
He
I'll
set it up
sketch
and
the
he
rest
knocked you
later.
down.
Goodbye.
all right. See y'all.
Bye, man.
Yeah, so The Wreck, I remember popping on the scene on a Switch. I want to say it was one of the Nintendo Directs maybe where they were doing one of their Indie World things that popped up. And it looked like this, and it's all about a car accident, and you're driving around, and it's this visual novel, which I didn't fully I remember seeing it in the presentation. Then it came through like, codes ready, you want? I'm like, yeah. And I jumped in not really realizing it was a visual novel. Because it is one of those weird ones, as always, when we get into these situations of what would be a Greg or a Janet game where we come in to look at them, right? And it's like, okay, cool. I started, and it's like, oh, well, there's not really gameplay to this.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it kind of becomes why didn't you just make this an animated film kind of thing? Because, like, the way the gameplay works is, you know, you're in the hospital, your mother's in the hospital, you are a mother yourself, you're divorced from your partner. You then go through and relive these memories. And so when you relive the memories, what you're doing is rewinding, basically going forward or backward through, I would almost say a diorama, where it's like, you know, you go all the way out and stop, and then you go all the way back in. And when you go, the controller will rumble, and then words will pop up as you just saw. And you click on those, and then a conversation starts about whatever's happening, and you go through this stuff. And like, it took me, according to my, you know, the new PlayStation update, having the little timer down in the corner.
I love that thing.
I do too. I wonder how. I do too.
I've gone back and I checked because the time played. I think it's just consistent with that, how that has functioned in the past, which is sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. The percentage is very interesting because I've gone through all the games that I've beaten, and a lot of them will say 100%, and so it's tracking mainline progress. Because I'm not completing a lot of these games, but then like I'm completing them in terms of I'm finishing the story and running credits. I'm not like getting the platinum in a lot of these games, but they'll still say 100%. But then quite a few of them will be like 30%. And I'm like, I beat that game. So what's going on?
That
here?
was one of my things with this. So again, I don't vibe with the Wreck. I'm giving it a 2 out of 5. I'm saying it's bad, which again is me exploring the KindaFunny review scale. It is not a broken game. It is not a thing. It's just like, it's all about its story. I didn't like its story. I didn't connect with its story. I don't think the story's told really well. I think at points the voice acting's not great either. Like there's nothing that's for me, what I've been using the bad is, it's like a 3 out of 5 on our scale. I'm like, it can either be like, it's okay, better than I thought, or it's okay, it's not that great. But an okay, I'd still be like, I would recommend it to. A bad, I just can't recommend to anybody. Like, I don't think anybody should. I don't know who I would recommend the Wreck to in terms of like, oh, this is what it's all about. And like, because it just doesn't connect with me. Anyways, though, you rewind, you go through the things, and you do and it's just like, this is it, and this is the thing. Oh, but back to, I was like, what was the point I was driving at? My clock says 3 hours on it, which makes sense. I would think maybe it's probably closer to 4 in terms of it, but maybe I'm wrong. But the problem is that like, I didn't like the game so much that it felt like pulling teeth at points. Like, and I was trying, it was pretty much all in one sitting. But then I was like, how much? I was like having this conversation. I'm like, I feel like I'm really getting close to the end of the game here, but I was also really tired. I'm like, I'm almost done here. And I tabbed out to the thing, and it was like, you're 60% done, and it estimated like 2 hours left or something like that. And I was like, I'm like, nah. Or yeah, I'm like, I can't. I'm like, I bounced. And then I came back, finished that conversation the next night, and did one more thing, and it ended. And I was like, okay,
gotcha,
whatever. So 3 hours is what it says around there. I mean, it's just like whatever. But like, the art style's pretty enough, but I think it's just not an interesting story, and that's all it is. It's just not an interesting story.
Are you determining the outcome based on conversation or anything?
No, so that was one of the questions I saw go through on the Patreon chat. It's not like a choose your own adventure. Basically, at the very, very end, they have the whole like, oh, this is what really happened. I'm like, I don't care at this point, but thank you. And it's like, but then there are 3 choices there, but all they do is lead to a different little, synopsis of, not synopsis, like a conversation from the main character, and then the whole thing's kind of happening in this like screenplay, which you know from the start, and then like a different ending on the screenplay. But if you want to see them as I do for trophies, because it's actually pretty easy platinum, you then can just load it up again and then make the different choices and do the whole thing again.
Oh damn.
But no, Wreck was a miss for me. It's worth pointing out, it's Pixel Hunt. These are the people who did Bury Me My Love. So if you that, which I know I enjoyed when I was playing it or whatever. But yeah, this one doesn't click for me. But again, it also received an honorable mention in excellence for narrative from the IGF in 2023. So what do I know? I didn't enjoy myself.
Damn.
What'd you play?
Nothing I can talk about. Like I've been working on a review, so I'm playing Redacted, and then like
Gotcha.
I've been playing Metroid Prime on Nintendo Switch, and let me tell you, Metroid Prime, pretty good video game.
Yeah?
Pretty good video game.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. Are you gonna pick it up actually?
Yeah, it was one of those. It's just been a hectic first half of the year here, but I'll eventually get to it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those ones where I've talked about this with Tim that like Metroidvanias for me aren't something I flock to. Like I don't see Metroidvania as a bullet point and go, oh, let's go. Like that's not a genre that excites me. I've enjoyed a lot of the ones that I've played, right? Where Guacamelee we talk about.
Drink
Really
box,
enjoyed Guacamelee. Ori as well, like we talked about. I really enjoy Ori. Metroid Dread, we talked about.
Sure.
I really enjoy Metroid Dread, but the Metroidvania aspects are the parts where I'm like, oh man, okay, I'm getting lost. Oh man,
I ain't
all right.
vibing with this.
Yeah, like I got this item. Oh man, now I gotta figure out where in this big map I need to go back to so I can explode this wall. Where Metroid Prime is like it's a prime Metroidvania. Like I don't think I mentioned this.
Prime.
This Prime. I don't think I've.
Some prime choice cuts here, Metroidvania.
It's legitimately the best Metroidvania I've ever played. Like it's fucking incredible. And it's that I've gotten to the point where I'm trying to reckon already end of the year stuff where I'm like, can I put this in my top 10 list? Because this is an old game.
Yeah.
It's a remastered version of an old game. Like this game is fucking good. I'm really enjoying it, but that's not a PlayStation game.
This game's fucking
The
good.
game's fucking good. That's my review. Put it on the box, Nintendo. Cowards.
They won't. They're cowards.
Yeah.
They'll never do that at all.
They won't listen to the show anyway. It's about PlayStation.
That's how we say all our real Nintendo opinions. Don't get in trouble for them.
Exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been PS I Love You XOXO. Each and every week, we come together to talk about all things PlayStation. If you like that, of course, be part of the show. Write in for free. KindaFunny.com/PSILY with your questions, comments, PSN messages, try harder, Golden Spider, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Of course, if you want to support the show, watch it live as we record it, get dozens of monthly benefit podcasts, those things, stuff over there. Patreon.com/KindaFunny. If you have no bucks toss our way, no big deal. YouTube.com/KindaFunnyGames and podcast services around the globe each and every week. Usually we go up on Fridays. We didn't go up on this Friday.
Oh,
Huh.
it's wild. It's
I wonder
crazy.
what's happening. Review season never ends. Ladies and gentlemen, there'll be more content on Fridays. YouTube.com/KindaFunnyGames, podcast services around the globe. But until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.